You must think, if you're like me that is, that you have it all figured out. Just save your money, don't spend it. Keep stacking that cash, and in the future things will just work out. You'll be in a better place, and all this sacrifice will be worth it. I recently went down a rabbit hole and watched a lot of content by somebody called Hormozi. Now if you don't know who he is, he's a very successful businessman who attributes a lot of his success today to the decisions he made about 10-15 years ago that involved him living like a broke person. He literally talks about living in house shares and living on floors.
And believe it or not, during that period of time, while splitting a room, sleeping on the floor with another dude, I was taking home about $15,000 to $20,000 a month.
And risking it all just to be successful in his business ventures. Now for him, he has made it and he is successful, and there's an element of survivorship bias involved. However, for the average person, there are no guarantees. Just because you live like a penny pincher for years on end doesn't mean you will be rewarded with massive financial success. The truth is, you and I are not Hormozi. He is an individual and he probably has a skill set and a larger degree of luck that allowed him to reach the position he's in. And he's attested to this himself. There's no guarantees in life, and just because you make the sacrifice doesn't mean you'll get a payout from it. So just because one person has managed to leverage their suffering and sacrifice into success doesn't mean anything. A lot of gurus will preach this notion of sacrifice today and tomorrow you'll be successful. The problem is, tomorrow is not guaranteed, and sometimes when you think about life, you have to think about it in a more strategic way. Thinking in absolutes is a mistake, and I've been doing it for most of my life, and only now am I starting to realize that there's more to things than just the black and the white. There's a grey area, and that's what we're going to talk about today. To start off this conversation, I'm going to make it clear that living frugally is very effective. There are a lot of benefits to it. There's a lot of safety that comes with it, and most importantly, it is a learning experience. If you challenge yourself to spend less and less money every day, you can be amazed at how little you can live on. So when you're more frugal, you'll have an increased savings balance, you'll have an emergency fund. Whatever money you do make, you'll manage to keep more of it. You'll probably be less likely to get into debt because you're spending as little as possible. Why would you get into debt? You're going to have an improved sense of financial stability. You'll literally become bored of the fact that you actually have money. There'll be an increase in your flexibility. Because you have a lower cost of living and you've kept your overheads low, you can probably make decisions at a whim. You can more easily go on a £800 holiday if you don't have £800 higher rent, for example. Now, it also gives you an important technique that allows you to develop in business, for example, and in your personal career as well, which is resource management. It encourages thoughtful consumption, and this can lead into other areas of your life as well. Especially if you're self-employed, a business owner, and you want to cut costs and improve your margins. Because really, what you're doing by living frugally is increasing your lifestyle profit margin. And for some people, not being focused on spending money all the time and going out and going on holidays and chasing the next dopamine high that comes from purchasing something can improve their well-being. And there is an argument for people who are very into possessions and experiences and who waste a lot of money to kind of take a step back and experience the other side of it and be a bit more of a Scrooge McDuck and save up as much as they can, because it gives you a perspective that you haven't experienced before. Now, saying all that, this video isn't an advert for being frugal, because I think a lot of people understand there's benefits to it, and a lot of people are not frugal because of impulse and a lack of discipline rather than they don't want to be. A lot of people do want to be frugal. However, if you have the discipline already in place and you have been frugal for a long time, there are some arguments for maybe not being as thrifty as you are right now. Now, I'm going to make this clear. This video is not glorifying financial stupidity. The whole point of this video is to help you make informed financial decisions about your personal wealth and money and cash flow. If you're struggling to get by and you're making £1,200 a month and you can barely afford your rent, you shouldn't be watching this. This will not benefit you. However, if you have a net income on a monthly basis after costs of about £2,000, that's your disposable income, should you save all of that? In my humble opinion, probably not. You should enjoy it a little bit, spend it. Why? Because having that £60,000 sports car at the age of 24, 25, 30 even, 35 is very different to buying it outright in cash at the age of 67 when your pension checks come through. You're not going to enjoy it as much. Just because it's a better financial decision then doesn't mean it is the right financial decision in the long term. At the end of the day, whenever you make a decision, you give up on many other decisions. This is the concept of opportunity cost. If, for example, you decide to forego getting a car that you'd enjoy driving at the age of 28, 29, you're going to be missing out on that vehicle, and you're going to be sacrificing that to maybe put more money in your savings account. In the long run, I do agree that this is a better financial decision, but financial security is not the only point of life. If you live simply to just live for financial security, you're not living, you're surviving, and you're preparing for every eventual crisis that, to be honest, if the economic system melts down, your £100,000 saving is not going to prevent you from complete anarchy in society. Just remember that. Ultimately, sometimes spending money is the best decision you can make. For example, reducing your quality of life is just going to make you upset. You will be stressed not over the fact that you don't have any money. You'll be stressed over the fact that you have money in the bank account, but you have this mental block preventing you from buying a few items or experiences to allow you to enjoy that money. You're going to lose that spontaneity that comes from just booking a flight and going somewhere. I personally don't care about holidays, but I know it's very important to most people. So why not experience those things? And even me, as grumpy as I am, when I'm in a different country or in a different region, I do enjoy it. Isolation. If every time your mates text you like, yo bro, we're going on a holiday, you down, and you're like, nah fam, I've got to save up for my house, that's another £300 on my deposit, you're doing the right thing. But God forbid, once you buy that house and you're on the property market and you're easily servicing your mortgage costs, why not just take that trip? Why not just make that decision once you reach a certain point? Because at that point, a lot of people are like, nah, I got my first property, I'm saving up for the buy-to-let, which, you know, that's a whole can of worms there. But then people are just constantly on this cycle of stacking more and more money. For what reason? There's all these stories of people who are absolute millionaires being depressed and sad. Use your money for your benefit. If your money is just sitting in your bank doing nothing, it's losing value. If you're just trying to save for the next investment, at what point do you sit down and say, I've made enough money, I'm going to spend a bit, I'm going to enjoy my life? Because ultimately, if you make that decision when you're 60 years old and you need a hip replacement surgery, you're probably not going to be enjoying your life that much. So just think about these things. There's also one important factor which people do not recognize, and that is decreased motivation that comes from restricting yourself so much you aren't benefiting from it. Now, I've been saving for a house for like 8 years, 5 years, a long time. You know, ever since I got my first job, I've been dreaming of getting on the property ladder, and that means I've not driven any nice cars. I don't buy expensive clothes. I haven't lived the life I've wanted to. I've lived a life that is allowing me to save, and I'm glad I'm doing all of that. But once I do get on the property ladder and I do have good cash flow coming in and I've considered my expenses, then I'm an idiot if I don't start spending my money to actually buy the things I want and enjoy my life. You know, at least in a reasonable perspective. I do still suggest saving 25-30% of your paycheck a month if you can, but even that is, you know, you don't need to. As long as you get close to it and as long as you have something at the end of it, you're fine. Now, this is all assuming you work in an industry with decent job security. If you are paycheck to paycheck every month and you're a contractor, it's a bit of a sticky situation. So everybody's situation is individual and tailored for themselves. There's also something else, which is this obsessive money saving mentality that people sometimes get into. Sometimes you should be at peace with the fact that at the age of your late 20s, this is probably the lowest, especially if you're in a corporate career with good progression, this is probably the lowest paycheck you'll get into in your entire life. Maybe live a little. Maybe recognize that the future is probably better, and being optimistic is important. There is a famous psychological study where people who believe they are going to get lucky actually have visibly better luck. It is just a quirk of nature, the universe, or whatever. It's similar to the placebo effect. Sometimes having a positive outlook. I'm not saying don't prepare for eventualities, but being positive is good. Now, I'm not saying go gamble everything you have at the bookies and waste away your life savings, but decide and think about your next steps in a way that you can enjoy your life.